Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news. Monday evening, of course. And guess what? Edwin is with me. Hi, Edwin. How you going?
I'm doing well, Martin. How you doing?
I'm all right, actually. Yeah. A lot going on. Still sort of putting the studio more together, but I've got cables everywhere at the moment, so it's a nightmare. I tell you what, it took me a long time to take the studio apart, but it's taken me even longer to put it all back together again. But we're getting there.
Yeah, well, at least you've got cables everywhere. A lot of people out there have got debts everywhere, right?
Yeah, that's right. Luckily, no debts, but plenty of cables. The trouble is that all the cables are the wrong size. So what it means is I've got to actually rebuild them all and trim them and then put new plugs on. So it's a long, slow process. And of course, the other thing is I've got a lot of Aussie plugs for power, which ultimately need to be transitioned to UK power as well. So anyway, that's fine. It's an illusion, Edwin. It's all an illusion, isn't it?
It is an illusion. So look, I've sent you some pics there. So tell me, what do you see with the first one? What do you see first?
I could see a frog. I haven't been able to see the horse at all, although you say there's a horse. I'm a bit suspicious about that. I can't see the horse, but I can definitely see the frog.
Well, look, there's three things you can see there. You can see a frog, or you can see a horse, or you can see the French cuisine, right? So you got to chip. So I'm sure you can see two of them. You just can't see the horse. Okay, the horse is sort of in a bit of an angle, looking upwards. You could say. So
Okay.
the frog's head is the nostrils.
Okay. Now I can still see the frog. So on the second one, this is a really interesting one. On the second one, I can actually see both at the same time.
Yeah, so can I. That's well, yeah. Some people just see one or the other, but yeah, like yourself, I see both. So that's it's good. You see the lady or the two Broncos fighting, right?
I see a big illusion. um, here's a point. If you actually end up with less and less properties actually being taken up for auction, right, and the clearance rates might be a little high, the absolute momentum is going through the floor as far as I can see. So I don't know. I don't see upward momentum, but I'm sure some people do.
Look, I'm sure they do too. But can you see behind the numbers there? Can you see the REA paint?
Yes,
It's
that's right.
faintly there. Faintly. Can you see it?
I can. It is really fascinating what's going on, isn't it? With the momentum continuing to slide, and with more and more agents chasing their own tails, trying to do anything to get a deal. It's not pretty.
No, look, it's not pretty. This is a story that still has not been told. There's only some commentators, online commentators, that are just picking up what you and I have been saying for since mid last year. And we said even before. I mean, we were looking at it at the industry at itself, the pain that it was going through in 2019, where the numbers were 18 and 19 were sales numbers, that is, were historically very, very low. So then we got into 2020, 2021. Yes, prices went up. They bounced back. They went back down a little bit. Then they bounced back up. But in all this, over the last 3.5 years, what we've been experiencing in the industry is very low sales numbers, and you would think that from 2020 till now, we would have less selling agents on deck, right? But we went the other way. There was a lot. There was a lot of promotion, a lot of banter, and people were basically getting certificates of registration and going all the way to doing the certificate 4 courses to obtain the class 2 licenses, and got themselves hooked into that. So there was a lot of promotion to get into the industry. Everybody not everybody, a lot of the people that have got in the last over the last 3 years believe it's a gravy train. But we're getting to the nuts and bolts now, where the we've got a stalemate in we're walking into a stalemate in terms of vendors and buyers potentially. I mean, there's still a bit of FOMO out there, but at the end of the day, it's it's almost coming to a grinding halt in certain parts of Sydney, not everywhere. But we can see at the end of it that there's a lot of pain with the industry. So regardless of what the numbers or the percentages reflect, that the main results, auction results are telling you, or the CoreLogic or the REA or Sydney Morning Herald, AFR, whatever publication people subscribe to. At the end of the day, what I see is real estate pain. Now, as I said, last week, Tom Panos was started commenting about how there were a lot of people leaving the industry. You and I called it even from 6 months ago. I mean, it was a lot earlier that we were calling it, but 6 months ago we said if numbers remain low, this is listings on market, the industry is going to be walking into where we were in 2019, and here we are. Here we are, Martin. Watch this space. And it's going to take the mainstream another 2 to 3 months to pick up our story, and because there'll be a lot of officers, with poor lease signs, stuck at the front of them.
Spot on. Yes, it does take time. Interestingly, I was talking to someone the other day who's involved in the agents industry, and he was also commenting on the fact that one of the things that's going on behind the scenes is actually they're kicking out some of the junior people who would actually be managing the rental properties. So in other words, they're trying to save costs. And what that means is it's putting more and more pressure on those remaining in the rental management sector of the industry. And his view was that means that the service levels are going to continue to degrade, and they're going to run for the simple, bung up rentals by 20%, those sorts of things. In other words, very little really good support for the rental sector as part of this. And numbers are down, volumes are down, income is down, costs are rising, of course, because a lot of them actually are driving around in still expensive cars and things, but that'll change. I think this industry is looking as though it's going to really be a bit of a train wreck ahead.
Oh, look, it is. It has been a train wreck, and you and I said in 2019, or after 2019, but for the pandemic and JobKeeper, the industry was given a lifeline. And unfortunately, many officers have squandered that lifeline, and they haven't taken advantage, and they haven't diversified into a lot of areas that they could have. They haven't got the systems in place, as George Roussos from I2C keeps on banging on about. And he's spot on. The back end is an absolute disaster. The support systems are a mess. George had an article in the Newcastle Herald last week. I think it was early last week. It was published with regards to the trauma that a lot of the property officers are going through, and the harassment that they have to endure, not only sexual harassment but also physical harassment by people that are simply irate. So you've got juniors, you've got people that have just left high school, in between high school and university, or tertiary education, walking into an environment that is really, really a hot potato, where they're trying to mitigate or trying to be the conduit between irate landlords, or landlords that don't give a shit about their properties, to one extreme of the rod, and on the other end, on the other extreme, you've got very irate tenants that are simply fed up that the landlords aren't getting simple things fixed, and they have to endure in properties that you wouldn't that are not suit for purpose. So this is the hot potato, and in relation to property management, I mean, even the fees. I mean, I'm seeing more and more signs out there posted all around the western suburbs, and also the upper North Shore. All the way up to Hornsby, where there are property managers that I know personally that are taking on properties for between 3% and 1%. in order to keep the landlords on board. I mean, my theory is if pay peanuts, you get monkeys, and and the level of service is evident of the fees that you pay. Albeit rents have gone up from, let's say, from 600 in some cases to 1,200, but the in my opinion, the 4 or 5% that were being charged before weren't cutting the mustard anyway. And the property managers, the senior property managers, are simply not coping, let alone the juniors that are coming into the industry. So, look, Mark, it is a mess. It is a mess that something needs to be done about it. And I dare say, as George keeps on pushing, the powers to be, hopefully there is going to be a day of reckoning, and something, this industry is going to be shaken up by the sheer fact that there will be a lot of offices closing down. But it's just a wait and see moment, and it's a ticking time bomb at the moment.
It is, absolutely, and these things will play out, I think, over the next year or so. And of course, as we've said before, the big portals will probably muscle in and push the industry in a particular direction for the benefit of those large portals rather than actually individual agents. I think there's a real wreck ahead, but it will take some time to play out. And of course, it's not uniform, is it? There are still some areas of Sydney where things are a little bit more buoyant, particularly closer into the city, I think. But certainly in some of the broader areas, it's looking pretty sick at the moment.
Oh, look, definitely. It doesn't play out all the same across the board. You can't paint it with with the same brush. The markets are different. Then you've got your obviously your areas where there are certain ethnic groups and ethnicities that have got their own way of doing things. And then of course you've got the migration from your lettings or rentals that are being managed by by licensed property management teams to they're doing the transition to private lettings, because what they're doing to the properties and what they've done to the properties in order to up the rents or the return on their investment, the rental yields is cannot be managed legally by agencies. And if agencies are trying to manage these illegal boarding houses, well, they're going to get themselves in a lot of shit. I mean, we've already had, as early as today, we've had one agency that has reached out and asked for help or support or some sort of advice, based on two properties that are being that they're leasing out, and pretty much one of them is bang on an illegal dwelling. So the authorities are out there. They're starting to check, but still not enough being done. So you've got all this moving sands, shifting sands in the industry. But all I see, again, going back to those fanciful numbers or uptick in clearance rate numbers, percentages, and they're all good and fine to the mainstream media. But the reality is the industry itself is in a lot of pain.
Yeah, and I don't think that it's getting enough coverage in the mainstream, which is not surprising given where we are. Now let's move on then and talk about the WeChat chat, right? Because there's a lot going on there, right? You've been involved in some traders groups.
Well, Dusty and Evan, they get into the trading groups, as you know. One speaks Mandarin, the other one speaks Cantonese. So you got to. Look, the thing is we put an ad out for posted an ad out to assist one of our clients with a bathroom renovation, and it was interesting the results. So in short. This is, we got, or Dusty got three callbacks, and they all asked the same questions, Martin. So they asked, is the bathroom renovation for somebody that's going to, for somebody that's living in the house that's going to, for somebody to live in long term? Is it a rental property, or is it a property for sale? right? So to you and me, to the to our in our mind, like, so if you if you were to get your bathroom renovated, right? These aren't the sort of questions that you would expect the tradie to, the master tradesperson or the bathroom renovator to ask of you, right?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it suggests that there are levels of quality, right? There's a level of quality if you're going to actually want to live in the place, right? A lower level of quality if you want to rent the place. But if you want to sell it, just do the absolute minimum and skip around the edges and, sort of lipstick on a pig, I suppose.
well, that's it. So there's the renovation to live in, right? There's the renovation to rent. Obviously, that's where your fixtures and fittings are not going to be the best. It's going to be the cheapest, and you're going to those sort of costs are going to be kept down. But you still got to do everything else within the regs, within the specifications, the NCC specifications, so that you don't get a comeback, because somebody's going to be living in it, and you're still going to own it, and they're going to give you a warranty on the waterproofing and the overall workmanship, right? But this is the classic, and this is what I posted up on Twitter last week, and I said that we would be sharing on tonight. And there is the showroom renovation special, right? So, pardon me. So now, if I said to you, well, Martin, do you want the showroom renovation special? To you and me, it conjures up all sorts of different images as to what they're really asking. So to you and me, we sort of think, oh yeah, I want something swanky as what you see in the showrooms. But their idea of the showroom renovation is a bathroom that's just there for show, but doesn't have the waterproofing membrane. More to the point, according to the current regs, which basically you have to waterproof it under the screed and on top of the screed. The screed is that portion of, or that cement that that cement mix that they put down that looks powdery to put the floor tiles on under the new regulations. So from your substrate floor, before you put the screed on, it has to be waterproofed, and then on top of the screed, you have to waterproof it as well. Now, every time you put a coat of waterproofing, you've got to wait for the following day, or although some waterproofing membranes would tell you that just wait 3 to 4 hours or so, and I don't subscribe to that. I sort of tend to want to wait till the following day. In order to do it properly, and in order to make sure that it's that dries properly in the second coat, and you get better coverage and a membrane that's going to be longer wearing. So when you don't have that, so this is what we've been banging on about over make sure that when you go to inspect properties, you got to make sure that if the bathrooms appear to be recently renovated, well, you got to ask the real estate agent, hey, listen, first of all, give me the company details of who renovated it. And if it sounds somewhat chattery, ask, hey, did the owner get the showroom renovation? Because if they did, you can bet your bottom dollar that they got the showroom special that's going to cost you another 25 grand later on down the track to redo it.
Yeah, and just to underscore that, the difference between the three levels is quite interesting, right? So to live in, so a proper job, say $22,000 plus, right? A version that was okay for rent, let's just say not with flash fittings, but serviceable fittings, about $18,000, right? But the built to sell, the showrooms renovation special, guess what that is? 9 to 10,000. So it's basically under half of what it should be. Now, people should be shocked by that.
Everything's slapped on, but I mean, this is what people are doing. This is what's being done out there. whether you're a WeChat chatter or selling your house, or whether you're anybody else, if you got a hold of a as they call them, if you got a hold of a Chinese master, bathroom renovation master, well then this is what he's going to ask you, and this is, and look, and the real estate agents, a lot of them know. A lot of them know this, and this is why you just got to be so damn careful. So look, it is a lot of money when you think about it. I mean, it's half price of the bathroom to rent, and it could be, and depending what you really want done, could be cheaper. But it still gives you that appearance. Oh yeah, this looks great, looks fancy. That's what I keep on saying over and over again. Not all that shines is gold. So and you got to make sure that the building reports and everything else, and of course. If you don't have all the proper waterproofing compliances, if you don't have all these things in check, well, you're not going to use the bathroom or that particular the main bathroom. You might use the ensuite, and if you've only got one bathroom, I dare say, and if you're still living in it, I dare say the owners that are occupying the house are probably washing themselves in the local gym or out the backyard under the hose.
Well, the other thought I had was, well, maybe you should turn it into a bedroom rather than a bathroom, right? It's been done before.
Oh yeah, you could. You could cat portaloos outside. I mean,
yeah, the mind boggles. I mean, it is amazing, and of course, in theory, you've got the 6-year guarantee, but does that really work? And that's another very important question. And look, if you are buying a property, it is worth probing a little bit as to when precisely renovations were done, who did them, and get an independent view as to the standard of renovations. But I suppose, Edwin, the other point is that if it does look flash, it is sometimes quite hard to be able to look below the surface and to understand whether in fact the waterproofing has been done, because of course it's not very visible.
No, look, it's not. But this is what I'm saying. This is what you got to take into account: is the simple fact that a lot of the things that you can't see, you can't really determine, 100% of the time whether or not there's going to be any issues, short term or medium term. Is you got to factor that into your costs, because you don't really know until unless you pull up a tile, right? But look, there are ways you sort of tend to notice. You tend to notice, I mean, I do, and some of the guys in our team are able to notice, as I've taught them over the years. But look, to the trained eye, you can tell. Like there was the one that I posted a few weeks back of an apartment, up in the North Shore. The agent was boasting that the bathroom had been recently renovated. Might have been probably about 18 months ago, and I managed to crawl underneath the apartment block. There was enough room for me to crawl underneath the apartment block, and I had a closer look at what was happening underneath the bathroom, and there was evidence, although the apartment had not been lived in for a few weeks because the tenant had vacated a few weeks prior. It hadn't been used, but you could see the evidence of the dampness and the water that had been running down the back wall of the shower recess area. When I went back up and started looking in the actual bathroom itself, then I had a closer look at the floor tiles where they met with the wall tile, and sure enough, they'd used grout rather than using bathroom silicone to cover that gap in the first instance, and but sure enough, the water, the grout had peeled away, and water was over the course of the period of the renovation gone through, and eventually it got through the waterproofing as well. So that tells you how shoddy the waterproofing was. I'm not saying just because there's missing grout that's it. That's the bathroom, the waterproofing wasn't done properly. No, but it shows you that the water, the first point of stoppage failed, and so did everything else thereafter. So then it was questionable. So this so-called recently renovated bathroom, we factored in a cost of $35,000 to rectify, because bathrooms in apartments aren't aren't cheaper than the, just because they're smaller to renovate than bathrooms in homes.
No, absolutely. And if you're in the middle of a multi-story development, you've got to think about what about the bathroom bathrooms above, right? Because water finds a way down. Water and gravity. I mean, it's a real old problem, isn't it? Right? It really does find a way down, and you suddenly find you've got a whole mess of issues up in your ceiling because of somebody above who hasn't done the job properly. So it can be really, really sticky.
Oh, yeah, yeah, literally. All sorts of substances could come down over the water and can
Absolutely.
get very sticky and smelly. Look, it is. And look, keeping the same thread on the same thread, Martin. Then, there's talking about shitters and the like. There's another, the economy in China is going to the proverbial drain as well. So, in Henan province, there's a business owner that his business failed, and uh, and he tried to get out of the lease. Obviously, the owner of the freehold wouldn't allow him to get out of the lease, nor would he allow this business owner to reassign the lease to another business that wanted to set up there in his stead. Basically, I guess he wanted to claim for the penalties, and anyway. Don't know the full background as to why he wouldn't allow it, other than the fact that he just wouldn't allow it. So, what this business owner did was, he converted his shop. He converted his shop into an upmarket, a bathroom, public toilet scenario with 4 cubicles, and apparently there's a waiting room where people can lounge around and order drinks whilst they wait for the family and friends to get out of the bathroom. So he's really gone all out. So, not if your business is going to the gurg, like, here's an idea, folks. If they're doing it and it's a successful, and it's now become a successful business because nobody wants to use the smelly old public toilets in that vicinity, and is making a killing.
Well, there are some businesses that will always survive, right? So I think of funeral directors, um, those who cut hair, and those who offer services for people to relieve themselves, because you know that those things are always going to be around.
Well, look, in the first snap, if you in the first photo image there, the old signboard of the business is that whiteboard behind the new signboard, which reads public toilet open, open for business, basically. So look, there's a business idea for any struggling business owner in Sydney, in Australia. Look, I mean, try to go to some of those toilets here, and the public toilets here in Central, or any part of Sydney for that matter. The messy, the smell, let alone you go to some of the toilets in some of the restaurants in Sydney. They're absolutely woeful. Never go back to certain restaurants because the food may be good and everything, but the restrooms are an absolute mess. But look, there's a business idea. Somebody could take it up. It could go places here. You never know. I mean, if I saw something there, I could. You could have a tequila whilst you wait for your partner, whilst you wait for Dusty or Evan to get out of the bathroom. I'd sit there and have a tequila and have a drink whilst they're relieving themselves.
Exactly right. Well, there are plenty of vacant shop premises in and around our major cities at the moment. So there you go, a business idea for today. Now let's move on and just talk about property investors, because I've been saying for some time in my surveys, I've been seeing a number of property investors who have actually been trying to sell their properties and to get out. And finally, the AFR have actually ponied the same information up.
Yeah, look, it's like you and I keep on saying, we are the news market when it comes to look. I know that that Sweeney and co, they watch our shows and check out Twitter feeds, and yeah, they'll write up the stories a few months or weeks down the track after we've broken them. But yeah, it's all good. Well, at least we know we're on track. So yeah, look, the thing is, the interesting thing for me is that the questions that come to mind is who is buying these properties? Why are they buying them, and what are they doing with them? And what although we've got your traditional investors or your long-term investors, the investors that want to retire, that you and I've spoken about, that in older apartments or have older apartments that need a lot of TLC now. They've got original kitchens from the 60s, early 70s, and they need a lot of TLC in order to relet them or to meet the standards, the current tenancy standards, or it may be homes that require a lot of maintenance as well, and maintenance is costly. So yeah, you and I have been talking about how they're the ones that were always going to be on the chopping block first and foremost, because the cost to maintain them and to keep and adhere to the currency tenancy regulations is very high. My takeaway from reading this story was thinking of the new tranche or the new group that are coming in hard, which is your WeChat chatterers, are buying these, redoing, but they're not going back into your typical rental arena or your property management sector, but they're being privately let because of what they do with these. So as so far from the ledger that we see on a week to week basis, or the numbers on market, there's as quickly as they come on, they're being taken up.
Absolutely. Well, there are still people buying, and going back to what we said the other day about the way that people might be valuing a property if they can, stack it with individual bedrooms and let it out and get a significantly higher level of rental income than previously, even if it breaks planning rules, even if it doesn't, it's done illegally. That's definitely a thing at the moment. And there are also some other people who are actually bottom feeders. What I mean by that is people who are actually looking for, quote, bargains at the moment. I've had a couple of interactions with people who believe that there are going to be more bargains ahead, and so they've got money and they're just waiting to see where the opportunities lie. I'm not sure to what extent that is going to be true. I think it depends a little bit on a bunch of externalities, including interest rates and other factors, and whether a recession actually hits. But it is interesting, and the AFR article there says 39.8% of that's a record of listings were actually from investors. So it really isn't a fascinating story, and it's what we've been saying for some time. So that some property investors have done the math. They realize that their cash flow is actually negative in terms of money in, money out. They recognize that there's little opportunity now of capital appreciation. And so they're thinking now, well, maybe now's the time to take some of that profit that I made previously when there was that run-up of values, in some cases more than 30 or maybe even 40% over the last couple of years, artificially created, of course. So what they're now doing is getting out and releasing that equity and converting it into cash, and then perhaps we'll do something again later. So that's the motivation. But also, just to underscore, the increased regulations, the requirements for additional work to be done just to make property rentable is also a very big thing. And what that means is that investors are looking at the increased costs of trying to make a property lettable, whilst the income, whilst it might be a little higher with rentals going up, isn't sufficient. So that's the fundamental dynamic that's going on at the moment.
Oh, look, absolutely. This is, and we're going to see a lot of this playing out, and this is where we go into the second segment. I'm now calling it making news, because you and I tend to make the news before the mainstream media pick things up.
Absolutely.
so, so leading from the AFR article is some of the interesting things that we've been talking to some agents in affluent parts of Sydney. Well, yeah, at the North Shore and the upper North Shore areas of Sydney and a little bit to the northwest regions, as to who the agents are preferencing to sell the properties to. Now we're talking properties of 3 million and up, Martin, right? So they are basically preferencing and pushing vendors to accept properties to wait for it to flippers and developers. And a small, very, very small portion to investors, people that just want to park the money. They just want to have something local because they want to just give it to a family or just give something local for their whatever reasons. But it was an interesting takeaway, albeit it's just from Dusty's and my observation, dealing with some of these people these agents in these regions over the last week or so, and just talking to them and getting to the point that we're presenting ourselves, as a syndicate to so that they can favour the clients that are behind us to purchase. You almost have to give them the illusion that our clients are predominantly people that are going to be buying, spending 500,000-600,000 on the property and then putting it back on the market, because the appetite in these areas that we've been searching is very high, and if something's completed, it'll fetch a handsome price at the other end. So obviously, why are they preferencing these properties? Why are these agents of all persuasions preferencing these buyers? Is because, well, they get two bites of the cherry, Martin. They get the initial sale, and they're more or less saying, well, we've done you a favour in persuading the owner to sell and sell it perhaps before auction or whatever the case may be, and so they're more or less saying, well, we want to have that second bite of the cherry when you finish renovating and when you put the property back on the market to its final homeowner. So it's an interesting takeaway. It's anecdotal. It's a small snapshot, but I thought it was rather interesting how these things are playing out. Now, I know it's not new. It's not something new. I mean, this is what happens when we used to sell development sites to developers. You more or less expect the developer to give the resale of what is developed, whether it be a duplex or a small medium density strata complex, or to even high rise, because you were involved, or you assisted with him or her obtaining the development site. You were able to broker that deal. But now, seeing it on the residential side and seeing it in these areas, I just thought it would be an interesting topic to share.
No, it is fascinating, and it's consistent with some things that I'm seeing, where developers are still sniffing around for opportunities, and as you say, flippers who are actually thinking about making a bit of a buck on the way through. Uh, it's not healthy for the market, I think, overall. And interestingly, of course, that the planning regs are actually much more generous these days towards subdivisions and towards piling more properties on the same square footage. That's been a significant change that we've seen not just in Sydney but across the country in recent times, and that means that a developer is potentially thinking of, well, I could put 2, 3, 4 properties on this, so convert from 1 to 4. That means that there's a significant upside for me, and that means that you're actually, if you're thinking of buying a property like that for your own occupation, not only are you competing with the WeChat chatters and their ability to be able to subdivide and create a huge rental flow. But you've also got the idea that a developer could actually convert a property into maybe 4 units or 4, all sorts of wonderful ways of saying, well, it's not really a detached property anymore. It's a terrace property, or it's a villa. The villa is the thing that I see quite often these days, right? So they're trying to convince you that this is actually great value, and of course that means that they can get a lot more value out of it, which basically means that if you're competing, you're not competing on a level playing field if you're just trying to buy it for your own use.
Look, exactly. But look, it's there, and this is where the money's flowing in these areas, and a lot of these areas are where we spoke about a few weeks back, where some of the people that are migrating into Australia that have already got the money out of mainland China and have held it in other parts of Asia or even America or Canada for that matter, and now they're focusing. They're focused. To have Australia as the final destination. This is what's feeding this small frenzy of flippers in these areas. So where you've got people that are just literally buying homes and for land value, but paying exorbitant prices and flattening them and rebuilding something. Why? Because they can, because they've got the money, and to them, 4 million, 5 million, that doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things, based on the monies that they've been able to take out of the China and the businesses or positions that they've held in China, which has enabled them to have this sort of kind of money. And at the end of the day, I reiterate and I say, we are not a very big market. When you think about the fact that you've only got 6,200 homes for sale in the Sydney region, it's gobsmacking, and you've got 6 million people or so fighting to have a roof over their heads, and more migrants coming in. So we're not a really big market. So whilst the numbers remain very low and consistently low, as we've been tracking them for this winter, and lower than what they were in 2022. When you've got all these other factors at play, fueling this FOMO, of course you're going to have some of the results that the mainstream are quick to report on. But this is where you just got to be careful and tread carefully. If you need to buy, you're going to buy. You want to buy, well, all we're saying is, tread very, very carefully, and pick the opponent that you decide to go toe to toe with.
Yeah, know your enemy, I think, is the key point there. And as you said in the previous conversation, it's quite useful just listening to what other people are saying and getting a sense of whether it's a developer or whether it's a WeChat chatter or what it is. And just on the numbers, last Friday in Sydney, 14,774. This Monday, the 10th, 14,657. So another small fall, which is consistent, very low volumes, nothing really happening, no real stirrings of new listings coming on yet.
No, but look at that, Martin. Is what stands out to me when we look at the numbers is the fact that there's not a lot of sales. All the numbers reflect low volumes of sales. Yes, you might read the 73% clearance rates and the 78% clearance rates and the 69% clearance rates and this and that. But at the end of the day, we're talking just hundreds of transactions, consistently under 1,000 across Sydney, when you've got 17,000 selling real estate agents based in Sydney. It's do the math.
I've done the maths. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. And Melbourne isn't much better, right? So if you look at the numbers last week, so this is the 3rd of July, 21,833. On Monday the 10th, 21,984. So a very, very slight rise, but precisely the same issue again, Edwin. Not a lot of throughput, not a lot of transactions, and a lot of agents with drafts in their pockets at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Look, and this is where I dare say that this is towards the end of the year, where that prediction of mine of the secondhand car market, dropping by 30, was it 30, 40 or 40, 50%? It's coming closer to reality, because obviously we're going to see. We know that there's a lot of business that are struggling and that are closing shop. We've been hearing stories of in the WeChat groups of how second generation business owners that have held convenience stores are literally closing them down now because crime and pilfering or shoplifting is on the rise, and the younger generation are concerned, have concerns for the parents or grandparents that have before had no issues in looking after the stores, and now there's too much trouble, and they don't want them, obviously don't want to have them injured or be involved in any in anything untoward. And so there, a lot of these people are talking, and the chatter is sell, sell, because crime is just on the rise, and this is what you're going to get as the cost of living rises. Well, and you're not making much more money, and your energy bill doubles in price, and your wages aren't going up unless you're a politician, of course. But this is this is the end result. So yeah, it's not looking pretty. It's not looking pretty out there, and so therefore, a lot of these leases, a lot of these people that are business owners that have got leases on cars and on other machinery, I can see that they're being sold off at more closer towards the end of the year.
Absolutely. Yeah, watch this space. I think it's definitely going to be a tricky time. On the old auctions, well, again, not a lot of movement. As we've said at the head of the show, the auction listings are pretty low. As a result of that, the clearance rates are, not hugely down, but they are a bit down, but on very, very low volumes. And again, it's the same old, same old. Not a lot of income being generated for the agents at the moment. Don't you feel sad for them, Edwin?
Oh, look, you got to feel the pain, right? So, look, some are, there's good people. There's a lot of bad apples. A lot more bad apples, but at least we're still sitting above politicians, I think, in the ranking, right? So, it's not too bad. I think we're 47 out of 50, so we're not at the
bottom. No, exactly. No, politicians and journalists, I think, are quite a lot worse, and car salesmen as well are down there, I think. In terms of rentals, not a lot really to talk about. If you take Sydney rentals on the 3rd of July, 12,152. This week, 12,219, so a very slight rise. Again, not a lot of movement really with the rental listings.
Not a lot, and that's the sad part. But there's usually not a lot of people want to move in the winter months or towards the end of the year as well. Like your main your holiday season at the end of the year. That's when basically the shifting or relocating slows down a bit. But look, it's not looking pretty. It's not looking pretty out there, unfortunately, and we keep on bringing them in. So and then they start asking all sorts of questions, and you got professors and commentators and property experts and all this and all that from all walks of life. Talking about what could be done, stop the planes. That's the first thing, in my view. But hey, I'm no philosopher, and I'm not a politician, so I don't carry too much weight, other than just comment and see what it all translates to on the ground, which is sad. What we're going to see, obviously, and you probably picked it up on your surveys, is that migration of dual families, dual families, or even three generations living under the same roof just to get by, just to get by, whether it's a rental or whether it's a property purchase or an owner occupier. That where else do people go, Martin? Where else do they go? When there's it's easier for single people, or easy for people that have got no children at special schools, or that require, or people that even require special treatment. They need to be around certain specialists and hospitals. It's easy for us to say, well, why don't you just move? But there's a lot more that is involved in just simply saying, why don't you just move? That's why I also put out a tweet there and questioning Boris and Panos's commentary along the last couple of weeks, egging people on to sell. I asked the question, in response to their comments, but where do they go? Where do you place them? Where do they go? How do they go?
No, that's the big question. And what I find fascinating, because in my surveys I do some work on rental, those in the rental sector, and whether they're planning to try and buy, or whether they're trying to stay put, or whether they're trying to shift to a cheaper rental. And what I find interesting is there's quite a few people in the rental sector who are saying, I'm really absolutely scared now with how rents are going. And I'm trying to think about whether there's any way at all that I can buy anything just to insulate myself from the rentals. But of course, the problem is the borrowing power is way down, and a lot of those are unable to find a transaction. So it's really, it's a mess. It really is a mess. And I guess that mess also translates through to our tip of the week, Edwin, with the pressure on people, with the lack of income growth, and with all of the inflationary pressures. Crime is also now becoming more of an issue, isn't it?
Look, it is. It's our legal eagles, criminal legal eagles that we chat with on a weekly basis. They're just saying the same. And a lot of our legal eagles that we chat with are, eastern suburbs based, and it's interesting how they've seen a rise in drug use and drug peddling. By lo and behold, the parent that stays at home because of the pressure that they're under, they got themselves hooked up with antidepressants or whatever to cope with the cost of living, and in order to not to tell their partner or the spouse about their naughty little habit, then they start peddling themselves, and they get caught. So that's been on the rise. But look, overall, Martin, the advice is don't walk alone, and don't be alone in public places, because what we're also being told and what we're noticing is, people are on edge, and people have got a short fuse, and because again, from the chatter on the WeChat groups, the businesses that are looking at selling and closing, it's for that same reason, because the cost of living is huge. And the chatter last week was mainly, well, people were asking, shop owners were asking, well, what do we do? And most of the commentary was, just let them walk out. You can't, you're of an age, you can't stop them. What do you do? How are you going to try and stop people? Shut early. And get out. So this is what's on the rise. This is what's boiling, and we've become, as a society, going back to the initial picture there of that optical illusion. You could say that society, is like a frog. The society is the frog in a pot of water, and the heat's just been, we're slowly being cooked by what's happening around us, and we're, sooner it's just got to, something's going to give.
I agree. It's certainly a tricky time, and Again, I see that in my stress surveys. Interestingly, the Roy Morgan research that came out today showed that consumer confidence was as low. It was back down where it was back in 2020. So, consumers are really up against it. Not surprising given all of the pressures with high inflation and everything else there as well. So it is a very tricky time, and so it's important to watch your back, I guess. As always, Edwin, very interesting conversation. Thanks for that, and I guess we'll do it all again next time, eh?
Oh, look, we will, and I'm thinking of doing the podcast. Maybe we can do it from a toilet, just to keep him great.
Well, that's a novel idea.
Well, we've been talking about businesses going to shit and toilet renovations and all sorts of things, the proverbial going down the gurgler. So why not? I'll set up in the bathroom. I'll set up the next podcast in the bathroom. How's that?
The mind boggles. Just make sure you get the camera angles right, Edwin, or we might be taken off air.
You look after yourself, Martin. Stay warm, stay healthy.
Yeah, thanks, Edwin. Take care. See you later, and we'll do the same again next week. See you later.